Thank you. Animation is cinema.
Wow. Does it ever drive you crazy just how fast the night changes?
Yo, I'm gonna let you finish, but ding dong!
Genuine question to start this video off. Dear viewer, is animation cinema? I'll give you 1 second. Wrong answer. Yeah, that's right, wrong answer, you big stupid idiot. Animation isn't the cinema? To everyone who isn't terminally online enough to understand what's being discussed here, so free of you, we need to take a step back to 2023. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio has just won Best Animated Feature at the Oscars and everybody's happy. It's an amazing film and I'm a massive Del Toro fan as is. He made Pan's Labyrinth from the original Hellboy movie, so he's basically my hero. And during the acceptance speech, Mr. Del Toro dropped 3 words in particular that made a certain group of people very, very happy.
Animation is cinema. Animation is not a genre. Keep animation in the conversation.
Animation is cinema. Wasn't some cute slogan Del Toro wrote up for his speech at the Oscars, but was a specific phrase used by thousands of animation fans across social media for a good while at that point, and started gaining traction just a year prior after the Oscars in 2022, where the award for Best Animated Feature was sullied by the presenters trying to win an award for, I don't know, most obnoxious twat.
So many kids watch these movies over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
I see some parents out there know exactly what we're talking about.
I'd like to apologize on behalf of my shit-ass country.
Afterwards, the official account for The Mitchells vs. the Machines, one of the movies nominated for Best Animated Feature, posted this image on Twitter, and the phrase only spread further from there. But the phrase itself was just a more direct way to vocalize the frustrations that many people within the animation industry and people who consume a lot of animated media have been feeling for decades. Recognizing the stigma surrounding animation being viewed and belittled as a genre exclusively for children, and getting louder and louder with the pushback against an obviously reductive and disrespectful way of viewing an entire artistic medium. Del Toro saying this exact phrase after winning Best Animated Feature at the Oscars was a huge moment, standing on stage in front of the entire industry and making it clear that animation is cinema, igniting hope in many that the general audience perception of animation would finally begin to change. Well, that's too much of a happy ending. I wonder if I'm missing something here. Oh, yeah, okay, well that makes sense. Nowadays, if you even utter the phrase animation is cinema online, you're just making yourself a target for mockery. Not because of the idea itself being rejected, but because the intent and purpose of the phrase itself was taken and twisted by many people in online animation related spaces, and promptly weaponized by people who are probably not old enough or mature enough to have unrestricted access to the internet. And the term became so overused and constantly used for a purpose that contradicts the ideals it was born from, that regular people simply got tired of it, turned it into a joke, a punchline, and as a result causing genuine harm to a legitimately positive movement. And the best part is, I don't blame a single person for making fun of it, genuinely, but let's get into some specifics, because that was a long list of statements without actually getting into any specific reasons why certain things happened. This is mostly going to be a video of me ranting against a particular kind of animation fan. I've had a legitimate bone to pick for a while now, so apologies for the lack of structure. So the phrase animation is cinema is obviously a phrase that goes against the idea of animation being made exclusively for kids, like it's some sort of kid-friendly genre. I could give the spiel about how animation is an artistic medium and not a genre, animation can be made for kids, all ages, teens, adults, any kind of demographic, blah 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 blah. But you get the gist of it. It doesn't go against the idea that certain films are clearly made with children in mind and as the most important demographic in some instances, like Disney and Pixar movies, but they can still be enjoyed by all audiences and will usually have plenty of things in them for older demographics to enjoy too. It's also a statement that recognizes the existence and importance of animation aimed at older and more mature audiences, instead of writing the whole medium off as kids stuff, and how those deserve just as much recognition and celebration, given that admittedly the most popular animated shows and movies are usually aimed at kids. Now, all of this seems fairly easy to wrap your head around, right? Right? Well, apparently for a lot of animation fans, it really isn't that easy to wrap your head around. In fact, a lot of animation fans didn't see this phrase as a celebration of the medium itself and a way to push back against an unfair stigma while celebrating less mainstream animated projects, and just saw it as a shield to hide behind when someone points and laughs at them for being a fan of Paw Patrol. Yeah, I'm just gonna dive straight into it. You there, you know who I'm referring to. Fuck you! That was mean. I'm gonna start that one again. Here's something a lot of people don't like to or don't want to acknowledge about the online animation community. A lot of you are grown-ass adults. Like, yes, obviously there's a lot of kids in this community due to the undeniable fact of there being a lot of animated media being aimed at kids, but a sweeping majority of people in this community happen to be adults. And while a lot of people in this community are reasonable and well-adjusted people, there's almost an equal amount who are not that. And many of these people are extremely insecure about the fact that most of the content they consume is either made for general audiences or made with children as the primary demographic. And they certainly don't like it when you point that out for them. Now, there's nothing wrong with being an adult and enjoying content that's not exclusively made for your age demographic. And there's certainly nothing wrong with enjoying content made for kids. Watch whatever you want, as long as you're not weird about it. Who f***ing cares what content you like? There's also a big percentage of people in this community who are on the autism spectrum, which makes sense as cartoons are a much less mainstream interest for neurotypical adults. And I can understand being frustrated when one of your interests is made fun of or disrespected. But if you're an adult, neurotypical or otherwise, who does watch content that's made with kids in mind, whether you watch it sometimes or all the time or prefer to strike a balance with the age demographics of the media you consume, it's important to just own that fact, honestly. Because if you're an adult and you're insecure about being made fun of for watching something made for kids, you might end up doing something stupid like taking a positive movement and widely recognized phrase and treating it like an on-hand defense mechanism. Very, very quickly, animation is cinema went from being a phrase meant to celebrate animation as a whole and instead became, please don't make fun of me for only watching Owl House Bluey in the Mario movie, did you know animation is cinema? The sheer quantity of posts I would see from people going animation is cinema while propping up the same cycle of 15 mainstream animated movies mostly aimed at kids and general audiences was embarrassing. All these posts would tell me is that the person posting it is incredibly insecure and barely watches anything beyond what's considered mainstream and barely anything outside of family-friendly fare. And after the Del Toro speech at the Oscars is where things started getting really silly with shit like the Mario movie being included in these kinds of posts. I think regardless of how you feel about the Mario movie, it's not exactly the kind of film you want to use in your groundbreaking animation is cinema movement, and frankly tells me you do not watch enough movies. Where's my appreciation post for Mad God, Cartoon Base? Yeah, that's right, those last few screenshots, all cartoon-based, baby. This is gonna sound petty, but I genuinely think this guy helped the most when it came to destroying any chance of animation in cinema being taken seriously ever again. Don't call him out on that publicly though, because then he'll hop on his 12 alt accounts to call you jealous and may even send a legal threat your way. But all of that's besides the point and can wait for its own video. I'm on your ass, Cartoon Base. With all of these posts floating around, circle jerking the same 5 shows and movies, it began to defeat the entire purpose of the movement and why the phrase was so effective in the first place. The phrase is literally an even simpler way of saying animation is not just for kids, it's for everyone. But it was almost exclusively being used to meat-ride cartoons made for kids and general audiences, which only helped to reinforce the stigma around animation being a kids genre. And it's not due to there being a lack of cartoons aimed at older audiences. There are plenty of those that do not get the attention they deserve due to them not being mainstream. It's due to the fact that a lot of these people do not watch anything other than stuff aimed at kids. I'm gonna be direct and a bit mean here. I do not have a problem if you only watch stuff aimed at kids. At most I'll find it a little odd, but I'll turn a blind eye if you aren't weird about it. But when you're literally sabotaging a whole ass movement because you aren't secure about the fact that you watch kid stuff all the time, then may I suggest diversifying your fucking tastes? Like, yeah bro, I understand there's a reason Bluey is popular with kids and adults, but if it's all you're watching and you're insecure about that, I don't know what to say. Let me put you on some Merriam Max shit, some Steins Gate shit, some Scavenger's Range shit. Heck, don't just limit yourself to animation just because it's your main interest. Broaden your horizons, you're an adult for fuck's sake. If I've got to scroll through Twitter and see your opinions on my feed, you best have a better standard for animation and whatever the hot new show across these free networks is. And I just want to briefly separate my job from my personal life for a sec before someone points this out, because a lot of the shows and movies I cover on my channel happen to be made with kids in mind. But that's because when you do this for a living, you gotta find a balance between what's popular and what you're actually interested in talking about if you don't want to put a loaded shotgun in your mouth. This channel is my job, but it's not my life. The majority of stuff I watch is not made for kids. Anyway, this whole problem also reminded me that pretty much anything you can think of has a niche and obscure fandom hidden in some corner of the internet, which is why I found it especially strange when I saw diehard Paw Patrol fans throwing this fucking phrase around like, Paw Patrol is a preschool show, we are not doing this. There's just a complete unwillingness from so many people in the community to just not engage with any adult animation at all. Case in point, recently, Genndy Tartakovsky's new animated movie Fix has been causing quite the ruckus online. I've been aware of this movie since it was first announced years ago, and I never really had much of an interest in it besides hoping it'd be good because Genndy Tartakovsky's my goat. But the more I kept hearing about the film, the more I was sure it wouldn't really be for me. Anyway, the trailer came out, everyone hated it, and then the movie came out and I mean, I didn't like it, but it's clear not a lot of people are willing to give Fixed a fair shot anyway. Admittedly, the trailer did suck really bad, and I don't think it's an accurate reflection of the film at all, but the film itself is fairly divisive, and it ultimately comes down to just how raunchy do you like your animated comedies involving talking animals. Personally, I didn't think the film was very funny at all, but I can completely understand how someone could watch it and come away from it genuinely thinking it was a good movie. So how did animation fans respond? Well, by treating it like the spawn of Satan, like without even watching the movie, calling it all kinds of nasty words and accusing it of being disgusting and promoting bestiality, and also threats were sent to the people who worked in it for some reason. And also, doesn't this seem like a massive overreaction? The comedy of Fixed is no more raunchy and absurd than the mid-Family Guy episode. While the movie is definitely gross, it is not reaching some new level of depravity that means all the animators should be thrown in jail. Debates about the movie being funny or not aside, a lot of the people shitting on Fixed are getting on its case for things that are common in a lot of adult cartoons, and I really don't get it. I'd say it's an overgeneralization to call all of these people animation is cinema people, but after a while of being in this community, you can usually read people very quickly, and a lot of the people dragging Fixed for the mud are the same people who barely expand their horizons beyond kids stuff, because the film really isn't that bad. The discourse surrounding Fixed is what actually got me to make this video, because even though the phrase animation is cinema is basically dead at this point, people are still dying by what they personally think it means, and all it's doing is adding to the stigma around animation. I don't blame most people for no longer taking the phrase seriously and turning it into a joke, mostly because the jokes themselves are funny, but it is very unfortunate that the good intentions behind the original statement got buried underneath piles and piles of insecurity from people who deadass do not watch anything other than kids cartoons. At the end of the day, if you're a grown-ass man or woman or envy watching these kids shows, and just own it for Christ's sake, it's not that deep. I don't need to hear long philosophical debates over Paw Patrol being considered cinema. Like, can we please just cut that out? Anyway, I'm out of here. That's the end of the video. Play Yakuza or something.